Beloved child, stop scrolling and remain here for a moment, because what you are about to hear did not arrive by accident. Something has shifted in the life of the person you love, and although the world around them may still appear unchanged, their heart is standing at the edge of a moment they can no longer avoid. They have been waiting to tell you something. They have rehearsed the words in silence. They have imagined your reaction. They have questioned whether the time was right, whether you would understand, whether you would still be there when the truth finally reached you. But now something unexpected has happened, and the message they once believed they could delay has become impossible to keep hidden. Do not rush away from these words. There is a reason your spirit paused here. There is a reason a strange feeling may have followed you recently, as though someone was thinking of you from far away, as though an unfinished conversation was trying to find its way back into your life. You may have felt restless without understanding why. You may have awakened with someone's name resting heavily in your thoughts. You may have noticed memories returning at unusual moments, not to torment you, but to prepare you. Heaven has been allowing your heart to sense what your eyes have not yet seen. The person you love has been carrying a truth that grew heavier every day they refused to speak it. At first, they told themselves they needed more time. Then they convinced themselves that silence was protecting both of you. They believed that if they waited long enough, the feeling would become easier to explain or perhaps disappear completely. But it did not disappear. It deepened. It followed them into quiet rooms. It sat beside them when they smiled in front of others. It awakened inside them whenever they heard a familiar song, passed a familiar place, or remembered the way you once looked at them, as though you could see beyond every wall they had built. There are moments when a person can pretend they have moved on. There are moments when they can become busy enough to silence their own heart. But there are also moments when truth rises so suddenly that every distraction loses its power. That moment has now arrived for them. Something happened that they were not expecting. It was not part of their plan. It was not something they could control. It interrupted the ordinary rhythm of their day and forced them to confront what they had been avoiding. One moment, they believed they could continue carrying everything alone. The next, they realized how quickly life can change, how fragile certainty can be, and how dangerous it is to leave important words unspoken. My child, understand this clearly. The unexpected event was not sent to frighten them. It was permitted to awaken them. For a long time, they assumed there would always be another chance, another evening, another message, another opportunity to explain what happened, to apologize for what they misunderstood, to tell you why they pulled away when their heart wanted to come closer. They treated time as though it were endless, but the event that just unfolded showed them that time does not always wait for courage. Sometimes courage must rise before the moment passes. And now their thoughts are turning toward you with an intensity they cannot dismiss. They are not simply remembering you. They are searching their own soul for the strength to reach you. There is a difference. Memory looks backward, but longing reaches forward. Regret speaks about what was lost, but love begins asking what can still be saved. The person you love has crossed into that deeper place. They are no longer only thinking about the moments you shared. They are wondering whether there is still a path between you. They are wondering whether the silence has lasted too long. They are wondering whether you would answer if they finally spoke with complete honesty. But there is something else they are afraid to admit. They are hoping you will be there. Not merely physically, not simply available to respond to a message or listen to a confession. They are hoping the part of you that once believed in them has not completely disappeared. They are hoping the tenderness you offered has not turned into permanent distance. They are hoping that beneath your disappointment, beneath your questions, beneath everything you had to do to protect your peace, there remains a small place where truth could still be received. This hope has frightened them because they know they cannot demand anything from you. They know love is not an obligation. They know your heart is not a door they can open whenever they finally decide to knock. Somewhere within them, they understand that their silence had a cost. They understand that while they were confused, you may have been healing. While they were hiding, you may have been learning to live without the answers they refused to give. That realization has changed something inside them. They are no longer preparing to approach you with excuses. They are beginning to understand that explanations without accountability will not be enough. They know they cannot simply say, "I was afraid," and expect every wound to disappear. Fear may explain their behavior, but it does not erase what you felt. They know this now. The unexpected event forced them to see themselves without the comforting stories they once used to. Avoid responsibility. Stay here because the deepest part has not yet been revealed. The truth they have been waiting to tell you is not only about their feelings, it is connected to a decision they made long ago, a decision that shaped the distance between you. At the time, they believed they were choosing the safer path. They thought they were preventing pain. They thought walking away, staying silent, or pretending not to care would protect everyone involved. But what they called protection slowly became regret. They watched you from a distance more than you realized. Perhaps not always with their eyes, but with their attention. They listened when your name appeared in conversation. They noticed changes in you. They wondered whether your smile was genuine. They questioned whether someone else had entered your life. They tried not to ask, yet the questions kept returning. There were nights when they nearly reached for their phone. There were mornings when they woke with a sentence ready to send. But every time courage moved closer, fear whispered that it was already too late. Then came the unexpected moment. It began quietly, a conversation, a piece of news, an unforeseen encounter. A sudden realization that arrived through someone they did not expect. What appeared small from the outside struck something deep within them. They heard words that reminded them of you, but the words were not spoken by you. They were forced to see your absence through another person's perspective. And in that instant, the story they had been telling themselves began to collapse. They had convinced themselves you no longer cared. They had told themselves you were stronger without them. They had assumed your silence meant indifference. But what they discovered suggested something very different. Someone revealed that your silence was not the absence of feeling. It was the result of exhaustion. You had not withdrawn because your heart was empty. You withdrew because you could no longer carry a connection alone. You stopped reaching not because you forgot them, but because every unanswered effort was teaching you that love without clarity can become a wound. When they heard this, something inside them broke open. For the first time, they saw the situation through your eyes. They remembered every moment you tried to understand them. Every time you offered patience when they gave confusion. Every time you asked for honesty and received distance. Every time you remained gentle while they were fighting battles they never explained. They remembered the way you made room for them, even when they gave you very little certainty in return. And then they realized what they had mistaken for weakness was actually devotion. Your patience was not endless because you lacked boundaries. It was deep because your love was sincere. Your concern was not desperation, it was compassion. Your desire for truth was not pressure, it was your heart asking for something real. My beloved child, this realization did not leave them unchanged. They walked away from that unexpected moment, carrying a weight they could no longer ignore. The world looked the same, but they did not feel the same inside it. They heard your voice in memories they had pushed aside. They saw your face in the quiet between conversations. They began revisiting moments they once dismissed, and each memory revealed something they had failed to recognize when you were still close. They remembered one particular moment. It may have seemed insignificant to you at the time. Perhaps it was a quiet conversation, a message sent when they were struggling, or a moment when you noticed sadness behind their smile. You said something simple, but it stayed within them. You made them feel seen without demanding that they explain everything. You offered comfort without making them feel weak. They never told you what that moment meant. They never told you that your words reached a place no one else had been able to touch. They never told you that when they later became distant, it was partly because being understood so deeply terrified them. Some people are not afraid of love because they do not want it. They are afraid because love exposes every hidden part of them. It brings them face to face with old wounds, old patterns, and the possibility of losing something that matters. The person you love had learned to survive by remaining emotionally guarded. They knew how to appear calm. They knew how to smile while withholding the truth. They knew how to leave before anyone could leave them. But you saw beyond that, and that is why you became unforgettable. You did not only awaken affection, you awakened vulnerability. You reminded them of the person they might become if they stopped hiding. That possibility felt beautiful, but it also felt dangerous. So they stepped back, hoping distance would give them control again. Instead, the distance revealed how deeply you had already become part of them. They tried to return to the life they knew before you. They tried to convince themselves that what existed between you had been exaggerated. They surrounded themselves with noise, obligations, conversations, and people who asked less of their heart. But peace did not return. The more they tried to bury the connection, the more it appeared in unexpected ways. And now, after what just happened, they can no longer pretend the message inside them is unimportant. They want to tell you that they were wrong. But those are not the only words. They want to tell you that they understood your value too late, but they are praying it is not too late to honor it. They want to tell you that your absence revealed what your presence had been giving them. They want to tell you that they compared every shallow interaction to the depth they experienced with you. They want to tell you that no matter how much time passed, some part of them continued to measure safety by the way they once felt around you. They want to confess that they missed you during moments when they pretended not to care. They missed you when something good happened, and you were the first person they wanted to tell. They missed you when life became difficult, and they remembered how you listened without judging. They missed you in crowded rooms, during quiet drives, and in the strange stillness just before sleep. But pride kept them silent, shame kept them hidden, and uncertainty convinced them that reaching out might only reopen what they had already damaged. Then the unexpected event placed one question in their heart. What if another chance never comes? That question has followed them ever since. They are beginning to understand that the greater risk is not rejection. The greater risk is remaining silent and carrying the truth forever. My child, you may be wondering why heaven would reveal this to you now. You may be asking whether you are meant to run toward them, rescue them, or immediately reopen the door. But listen carefully. This message is not asking you to abandon your wisdom. It is not telling you to ignore the lessons you learned. Divine love never asks you to betray your own peace. You are being prepared, not pressured. There is a difference between opening your heart and surrendering your discernment. There is a difference between compassion and self-abandonment. You can listen without losing yourself. You can forgive without pretending nothing happened. You can receive an apology without immediately restoring the same access someone once had. The person you love is hoping you will be there, but what being there means must now be shaped by truth. You are no longer the version of yourself who waited endlessly for crumbs of clarity. You have grown. Your silence has taught you. Your tears have strengthened you. The nights you spent questioning your worth did not destroy you. They revealed how important it is to protect the sacredness of your heart. They will sense this change in you. When they finally speak, they may expect the old version of you. The one who rushed to reassure them, the one who softened every hard truth to make them comfortable. But they are going to encounter someone different. They are going to see tenderness with boundaries, love with wisdom, compassion with self-respect. This may surprise them, it may even make them pause. But it is necessary, because if this connection is ever to become what it was meant to be, it cannot be rebuilt on the same foundation that allowed confusion to grow. It must be rebuilt with honesty, patience, consistency, and courage. Words may open the door, but actions will determine whether the path remains open. And somewhere within them, they know this. That is why they are afraid. They do not only fear that you will reject them, they fear that you will see through them. They fear that you will ask the questions they have avoided. They fear that the truth will require them to become accountable in ways they have never been before. Yet, despite that fear, they are moving closer, slowly, carefully. Perhaps they have already written something and deleted it. Perhaps they have asked someone you both know about you. Perhaps they have returned to an old photo, an old conversation, or a place connected to your memories. Perhaps they have looked for a sign that you would not turn away. But the sign they need is not permission to repeat the past. The sign they need is the courage to face the truth. And heaven is placing that courage before them now. There is another layer to what happened, one they have not fully processed. The unexpected event did more than awaken regret. It revealed that someone around them knew more about their feelings than they realized. A person they trusted looked at them and spoke with startling honesty. They said something that pierced through every defense. They told them that their eyes change whenever your name is mentioned. They told them that no matter how much they denied it, their silence speaks of unfinished love. They told them that they have been punishing themselves for a decision they are still allowed to confront. At first they resisted, they tried to laugh it away, they changed the subject. They claimed the past was over, but their reaction revealed everything. Their voice changed. Their hands became restless. Their eyes moved away. The person speaking to them saw what they had tried so hard to hide. Then came the question that left them speechless. Why are you waiting? They had no answer, because the honest answer was painful. They were waiting for certainty before offering courage. They were waiting for the fear to disappear before taking action. They were waiting for you to somehow understand everything they never explained. They were waiting for the perfect moment, unaware that perfect moments are often created by imperfect people who finally decide to be truthful. That question remained with them after the conversation ended. Why are you waiting? It followed them into the night. It followed them into the silence. It followed them until they could no longer avoid the answer. They were waiting because they feared that you had learned how to live without them, and deep inside, they knew you had. That truth did not make them stop loving you. It made them realize that love can survive in the heart while opportunity disappears from the world. They understood that your life would not remain suspended forever. You were still growing, still healing, still becoming. And someday, someone might arrive who would value openly what they only valued in silence. The thought shook them. Not because they believe they own you, not because they have the right to interfere with your path, but because they finally understood what their hesitation might cost. They are not entitled to another chance, but they are no longer willing to lose the possibility without telling you the truth. This is what has changed before. They hoped time would solve everything for them. Now, they know time will only move forward. Before, they waited for you to make the first move. Now, they understand the next honest step belongs to them. Before, they wanted reassurance without vulnerability. Now, they are beginning to accept that love requires the risk of being fully seen. Still, one final barrier remains. There is a secret beneath the secret. The words they have been waiting to tell you are connected to something they did during the time you were apart. It was not necessarily betrayal, but it was a choice made from confusion, fear, and pressure. They believed the choice would help them move forward. Instead, it revealed the strength of what they still felt for you. They tried to create a future that did not include you. They made plans. They considered possibilities. They may even have allowed others to believe their heart had moved in another direction. But every step felt strangely empty. The more they attempted to build without acknowledging the truth, the more unstable everything became. Then, very recently, that false sense of direction collapsed. Something they thought was settled became uncertain. Someone they expected to remain beside them stepped away, challenged them, or revealed intentions they had not seen before. A plan changed. A conversation exposed hidden motives. A situation they believed was secure suddenly became impossible to ignore, and in the middle of that confusion, your name rose within them. Not because you were a second choice, not because they only remembered you when things went wrong, but because the collapse removed the distraction that had kept them from confronting what was always true. They had never emotionally left you. They had only hidden from the depth of what they felt. Now, they are standing in the consequences of that hiding, and they do not know whether you will believe them when they finally explain. This is why they are hoping you will be there. They are not asking you to solve what happened. They are hoping you will allow them to speak before you decide what their place in your life should be. They want one honest moment, one conversation without masks, one chance to place the full truth between you. But before that conversation happens, your heart must be ready. Not desperate, not guarded by anger. Ready to listen without imagining outcomes too soon. Ready to observe whether their actions match their confession. Ready to remember that your worth does not depend on what they choose. Ready to understand that closure and reconciliation can sometimes begin with the same conversation, but they do not always end in the same place. You are not being called to chase. You are being called to stand firmly in who you have become. Let them come with truth. Let them show what the unexpected moment has changed within them. Let them prove whether this awakening is temporary emotion or lasting transformation. Because soon they may say the words you once begged to hear, but you will hear them with different ears now. You will not only listen for love, you will listen for maturity. You will not only listen for regret, you will listen for responsibility. You will not only listen for promises, you will watch for evidence. And that is exactly what heaven wants you to do. My child, the connection between two hearts is not measured by intensity alone. Intensity can be powerful, but consistency builds safety. Longing can feel spiritual, but honesty gives it direction. Beautiful words can stir the soul, but changed behavior reveals whether a person is prepared to protect what they claim to value. The person you love is approaching a decision. They can return to silence and carry the regret, or they can step forward and risk everything through honesty. At this very moment, they are closer to choosing honesty than they have ever been before. But something happened after the conversation that awakened them. Something no one else knows yet. They received a message. They stared at it for a long time before opening it. The words inside were brief, but they changed the meaning of everything that had just happened. It involved you, a truth from the past, and a detail they had misunderstood for far too long. As they read it, their entire expression changed. The fear in their heart was replaced by urgency. They realized you had once tried to tell them something. They realized someone had kept part of the truth from reaching them. And now they know that the distance between you may have begun because of a hidden interference. Neither of you fully understood, but the identity of the person connected to that message and what they were trying to prevent is the revelation that is about to change everything. The silence that followed those words was unlike anything they had ever experienced. It was not the silence of confusion. It was the silence that comes when pieces of a story, scattered across months or even years, suddenly begin fitting together in ways no one expected. They held that message in trembling hands, reading it again and again, hoping they had misunderstood it. But every time their eyes returned to the words, the meaning became even clearer. They realized that what they believed about you had been built upon fragments instead of truth. They had judged moments without knowing the entire story. They had assumed intentions that were never yours. And now, standing in the middle of that unexpected revelation, they could no longer escape one painful realization. They had walked away from someone who had been trying to protect the connection all along. My beloved child, before you rush ahead with your thoughts, remain with me for a little longer. There are still hidden layers beneath what has already been uncovered. The greatest revelations rarely arrive all at once. Just as dawn slowly replaces the darkness instead of exploding across the sky in a single instant, so too does understanding enter the human heart. You are not hearing this message because heaven wishes to awaken false hope. You are hearing it because truth has begun moving where silence once ruled, and truth has a way of changing every path it touches. Perhaps you have wondered why certain memories refuse to leave you. Perhaps there were evenings when you whispered to yourself, "If only they knew what I truly meant." Perhaps there were moments when you wanted to explain everything, but your spirit sensed that no explanation would be heard because fear had already taken control of the other person's heart. Those moments were not forgotten. Every sincere tear, every quiet prayer, every unspoken wish was witnessed. Even when no human being understood the weight you carried, heaven did not overlook a single heartbeat. The person you love has begun remembering those forgotten moments with astonishing clarity. Memories that once seemed ordinary now carry extraordinary meaning. They remember the hesitation in your voice before you said goodbye one evening. At the time, they assumed you were simply tired. Now they understand you were hoping they would ask you to stay a little longer. They remember a message you once sent that seemed unusually short. They thought you had lost interest. They now realize you were protecting your heart after waiting for hours just to receive a few words in return. They remember the concern in your eyes during a conversation they dismissed too quickly. What they interpreted as unnecessary emotion was actually love trying to reach someone who had become afraid of receiving it. These realizations have not come gently. Each memory feels like a mirror placed before their soul. Every reflection asks the same question: why didn't you see it sooner? That question has become impossible for them to silence. It follows them during ordinary tasks. It interrupts conversations. It returns when the room grows quiet. It arrives unexpectedly while they are driving, while they are working, while they are pretending everything is normal. They have discovered that regret is not loud. Regret whispers. It patiently waits until distractions fade, then speaks with remarkable honesty. Yet this is not the end of the story. Regret alone cannot heal what has been broken. Recognition alone cannot restore trust. Something greater must happen, something deeper, something that cannot be manufactured by emotion alone. The unexpected event did more than expose hidden truth. It broke the illusion that they were still in control of everything. For years they believed they could decide when to open their heart, when to close it, when to speak, and when to remain silent. They believed love could be postponed without consequences. But now they understand that hearts are not machines. They cannot simply be switched on whenever convenience returns. Love requires presence. It requires courage. It requires honesty before certainty exists. For the first time in a very long while, they stopped trying to control the outcome. Instead, they asked themselves a different question. What if I simply tell the truth? Those words changed everything. Not because they instantly removed every fear, but because they shifted the direction of their heart. They were no longer asking, will I be accepted? They began asking, can I finally become honest? That change may seem small, but spiritually, it is enormous. When the desire to protect one's pride becomes weaker than the desire to live truthfully, transformation begins. My child, there is something beautiful about this moment that even they do not fully understand yet. You have changed too. While they were wrestling with hidden emotions, you were quietly becoming stronger. The nights that once left you feeling abandoned slowly taught you how to stand with dignity. The disappointments that once made you question your worth gradually revealed that your value has never depended upon another person's ability to recognize it. What once felt like unbearable waiting became a season of unseen growth. You may not even recognize yourself. The person who once searched desperately for explanations has become someone who values peace. The person who once feared being alone has discovered that my presence fills places no human being ever could. The person who once begged for clarity has learned that silence can also become a teacher. Do not underestimate what these changes have accomplished inside you. They have prepared you for a conversation that would have destroyed the older version of your heart. But the person you are becoming can handle truth without losing yourself. The one you love does not yet realize how much you have grown. In their mind, part of them still imagines meeting the version of you they left behind. They expect the same reactions, the same insecurities, the same longing. But they are going to discover someone remarkably different. They are going to encounter calm where they expected desperation, wisdom where they expected confusion, quiet confidence where they expected fear. That change will speak louder than anything you could ever say. Because genuine healing cannot be imitated, it is visible. There is another mystery unfolding behind the scenes. The person you love has started noticing repeated reminders of you in places where they least expect them. A familiar phrase, a meaningful date, an old photograph discovered by accident, a song they had avoided for months suddenly playing without warning. Even conversations with people who know nothing about your story somehow circle back to themes that remind them of the connection they tried to forget. Each moment feels strangely timed. Each reminder asks them whether they are finally ready to stop running. Some would call these coincidences, but in their heart, they no longer believe that. Instead, they have begun asking whether these moments are invitations to confront what they buried, instead of what they truly desired. Yet one obstacle remains. It is not distance. It is not circumstance. It is not another person. It is fear, not fear of speaking, the fear of being completely known. They know that if they finally stand before you with complete honesty, they cannot hide behind excuses anymore. They cannot rewrite history. They cannot pretend nothing happened. They must trust that truth itself possesses enough strength to stand without decoration. That realization has humbled them. For perhaps the first time, they understand that love is not proven by dramatic declarations. It is proven by consistency after the declaration ends. This understanding has been growing quietly within them, day by day, prayer by prayer, reflection by reflection. And still they hesitate, not because they do not care, but because they care more deeply than ever before. Ironically, the closer they come to telling you everything, the more vulnerable they feel, because once truth is spoken, there is no safe place left to hide. There is only the reality of your response. My beloved child, I want you to understand something that many hearts never learn. Do not confuse vulnerability with weakness. The strongest hearts are not those that never tremble. The strongest hearts are those that continue walking forward even while trembling. The one you love has reached that place. Their confidence has broken, their pride has softened, their certainty has disappeared, but something stronger has quietly taken its place: authenticity. And authenticity has a power that pride never possesses. It heals, it restores, it rebuilds. It invites trust where fear once ruled. Even now, they are replaying possible conversations with you. They imagine saying your name. They imagine apologizing. They imagine explaining every misunderstanding. Then they imagine you looking into their eyes without saying a word. That imagined silence unsettles them more than any rejection ever could, because they know your eyes have always searched for truth, not perfection, truth. They remember how impossible it was to deceive someone who genuinely cared. You noticed changes before they admitted them. You sensed pain before they confessed it. You recognized distance before they acknowledged it. That gift frightened them once. Now it has become the very thing they hope will save what remains between you. There is something they have never admitted to anyone. Not to family, not to friends, not even to themselves until now. During the time you were apart, there were moments when they almost convinced themselves to move on, completely. Yet every attempt felt incomplete, not because life stopped. Life continued. Responsibilities increased. New faces appeared. New opportunities came. The world kept turning. But inside them, there remained one unfinished room. A place no one else entered. A place still carrying your name. They locked that room and pretended it no longer existed. The unexpected event unlocked the door. Now everything they hid has come rushing back at once. The memories, the conversations, the laughter, the unfinished promises, the questions, the hope, the regret, everything. And standing in the middle of all of it is one realization that refuses to leave. If I remain silent now, I may carry this for the rest of my life. That thought has become heavier each day. It no longer allows them to sleep peacefully. It no longer permits comfortable denial. Instead, it urges them toward one unavoidable decision: tell the truth, no matter what follows. Still, there is one final piece that has not yet been revealed. It is connected to the message they received. After reading it several times, they noticed something hidden between the lines. A date, a detail, a name. At first, it seemed insignificant, but then another memory surfaced. Suddenly, they remembered a conversation from long ago. Someone had quietly influenced the way they viewed you. Someone had planted subtle doubts, not obvious lies, just enough uncertainty to make fear seem reasonable. At the time, they accepted those suggestions without questioning them. Now they realize how easily insecurity can borrow another person's voice. They are beginning to investigate those forgotten conversations. The deeper they look, the more surprising everything becomes, because they are discovering that many of the assumptions separating the two of you were never built upon facts. They were built upon misunderstanding, and once misunderstanding is exposed to truth, it begins to collapse remarkably fast. That collapse has already begun, but what they uncover next will force them to make a choice before another sunrise, a choice that could permanently change the direction of both your lives. They have no idea that at nearly the same moment they are preparing to speak, another hidden truth is also moving toward the surface. When those two truths finally collide, nothing between you will remain the same. And that moment is far closer than either of you realizes. My beloved child, there are moments in every human life when the heart stands between two roads, unable to remain where it is any longer. One road leads back into silence, where fear disguises itself as safety and regret quietly grows. With every passing day, the other road leads into truth, where every hidden feeling must finally step into the light. The person you love has arrived at that very crossroads. They cannot remain suspended between yesterday and tomorrow forever. Something inside them has awakened with such force that even they no longer recognize the person. They were only a short time ago. Do not think this transformation happened overnight. The soul rarely changes because of a single event alone. It changes because countless quiet moments finally gather enough strength to break through the walls surrounding the heart. Every sleepless night, every memory they tried to suppress, every unfinished conversation replaying in their mind, every unexpected reminder of you, every silent prayer they whispered without even realizing they were praying. Together, they became the gentle pressure that finally cracked the armor they had spent so long building. For years, they believed strength meant hiding emotion. Now they understand that true strength begins the moment a person no longer runs from what they feel. This realization has humbled them in ways they never imagined possible. They have begun asking questions they once refused to face. What if they misunderstood me because I never explained? What if I confused silence with wisdom? What if the person I was protecting was only my own pride? What if the greatest mistake of my life was believing I still had unlimited time? Each question has become another step toward honesty. Each answer has become another reason they can no longer remain where they are. My child, there is something you must understand before this story continues. Not every delayed confession is born from a lack of love. Sometimes it is born from a heart carrying wounds it never learned how to heal. The person you loved did not always know how to receive kindness. They grew accustomed to expecting disappointment. When someone came close enough to truly understand them, part of them celebrated while another part prepared for loss before loss had even arrived. That hidden fear shaped countless decisions. It whispered that distance would hurt less than vulnerability. It convinced them that leaving first was safer than risking abandonment. It disguised self-protection as wisdom. For a season, they believed those lies. But lies cannot survive forever when truth begins knocking at the door. That knock has become impossible to ignore. Everywhere they turn, something quietly reminds them of unfinished love. One evening, while sorting through old belongings, they found something they had completely forgotten. It was small, simple, almost insignificant to anyone else. Yet, the moment they held it, time seemed to stand still. Suddenly, they were no longer standing in the present. They were standing inside a memory. They remembered your laughter, the softness in your voice, the hope that once lived in your eyes. The way you looked at them before disappointment slowly replaced certainty. That single object carried more emotion than they thought possible. They sat there for a long time without moving. No distractions, no excuses, no pretending. Only truth. For the first time, they allowed themselves to grieve what had been lost. Not because love disappeared, but because they realized how much of it had remained unspoken. Tears came without warning. Not dramatic tears, quiet ones. The kind that arrive when a person finally stops resisting their own heart. No one witnessed that moment. No applause followed. No audience existed. Only heaven. Only honesty. Only a soul beginning to awaken. As they sat there, another realization slowly emerged. You had never asked them to be perfect. You only asked them to be that truth broke something inside them. They spent so much energy trying to appear strong that they forgot authenticity was what you valued. Most, you never expected flawless answers. You simply hoped they would trust you enough to tell the truth. Now they understand, perhaps too late, or perhaps exactly when they needed to. Stay with me because another layer is about to unfold. There is someone observing this transformation from a distance, someone who has noticed the change before the person you love has fully admitted it aloud. This individual has quietly watched their expressions shift whenever your name enters a conversation. They have seen moments when the person you love becomes unusually silent. They have noticed how quickly the subject changes whenever someone asks about relationships. Recently, this observer finally spoke, not with criticism, not with judgment, but with remarkable clarity. They asked a question so simple that it echoed through every hidden corner of the heart. If your feelings have never disappeared, what are you still waiting for? Again, silence answered first, not because there was no answer, because the honest answer was painful. They were waiting for certainty, waiting for guarantees, waiting for a sign that rejection would never happen, waiting for courage to arrive before taking the first step. Then they heard words they will never forget. Courage doesn't arrive first. It arrives while you're already walking. Those words refused to leave them. They replayed them again and again. Each repetition weakened fear a little more. Each repetition strengthened hope. For the first time, they stopped asking whether reaching out would succeed. Instead, they began believing that remaining silent would be the greater failure. My beloved child, there is also something happening within you, even if you cannot yet see it. Your own heart has been quietly preparing. There were seasons when you searched endlessly for answers. Now you seek peace before explanations. There were days when every silence felt personal. Now you have learned that another person's confusion does not define your worth. You have become more patient. Not because waiting is easy, because wisdom has replaced panic. That change is sacred. Never surrender it. If someone returns to your life, let them meet the healed version of you. Do not return to becoming smaller just to make another person feel comfortable. Your growth is not an accident, it is part of the preparation. Because if this conversation had happened months ago, emotions would have controlled everything. Now, something different exists. Discernment. You can recognize sincerity without abandoning wisdom. You can receive words while still observing actions. That balance will protect your heart. Meanwhile, the person you love has started writing. Not necessarily to send immediately, but because their heart can no longer carry everything silently. Pages filled with thoughts, confessions, questions, apologies they never spoke. Memories they never admitted mattered. Some sentences were crossed out, others rewritten. Some pages ended with tears before they reached the final line. They discovered something unexpected while writing. The more honest they became, the less they feared the outcome. Truth has a strange power. It removes the exhausting burden of pretending. They are beginning to experience that freedom. Yet another surprise is approaching. The unexpected message they received was only the beginning. Shortly afterward, another conversation took place. This one was entirely unplanned. Someone mentioned your name without realizing its significance. The room fell unusually quiet. The person you love listened carefully. Then they heard something that made their heart race. They learned that during the time everything seemed to fall apart between you, you had defended them when others misunderstood their intentions, even while carrying your own disappointment, even while feeling hurt. You chose compassion instead of revenge. You protected their reputation when it would have been easier to remain silent. They had never known this. Not once. The discovery overwhelmed them. They realized you had shown loyalty even after receiving uncertainty in return. That knowledge humbled them beyond words. They asked themselves, why would someone I disappointed still choose kindness? The answer slowly became clear, because genuine love seeks truth before judgment. That realization has changed the way they remember everything. They no longer see your patience as weakness, they see it as extraordinary strength. And now another question has taken root inside them. If they could show me grace then, do I still have the courage to face them now? This question refuses to leave. It follows every quiet moment. It appears whenever they begin doubting themselves. It reminds them that opportunities disappear when fear becomes a permanent home. My child, remember this carefully. If two hearts are ever meant to rebuild trust, truth must arrive before expectations. One honest conversation is more powerful than 1,000 imagined ones. One sincere apology carries more weight than endless, silent regret. One courageous step often changes the direction of an entire future. The person you love is beginning to understand this. That understanding has created a sense of urgency unlike anything they have ever experienced. They no longer wish to postpone tomorrow. They no longer believe another perfect opportunity will simply appear. Instead, they are quietly preparing to speak, preparing to listen, preparing to accept whatever answer comes. But heaven has not yet revealed the final surprise. There is still one hidden thread connecting everything, the object they rediscovered, the mysterious message, the unexpected conversation, the forgotten memories, the person who encouraged them to stop waiting. None of these moments happened independently. They are connected, like pieces of a design only visible from above. Very soon, the final piece will appear. When it does, they will realize that one decision made long ago, one decision they believed was small, changed far more than they ever imagined. That discovery will force them to tell you everything. Not only what they feel, but what really happened. Why certain words were never spoken. Why certain messages never reached you. Why one crucial misunderstanding was allowed to grow unchecked. When those answers finally come into the light, both of you will understand that the story was never as simple as either of you believed. And standing behind that hidden truth is one name neither of you expected to hear. That revelation is about to open a chapter no one saw coming.